Power Podcast.
And today we're going to talk hoops like we always do. But in particular, we're going to discuss some of the things that have gone down, the trading deadline, as well as the MVP discussion, and just what are the Houston Rockets doing. So we got some great subject material to talk about. And I think I'm just going to start right off the bat here. For those that don't know, this is a new podcast. We shoot everything from the hip. Nothing is rehearsed. Nothing is scrubbed, filtered. If we mess up here, we mess up. I love live takes. And then basically that's the spirit of this podcast that we're going to try to do. So real quick, let's talk about the trades that went on in the NBA. And I'm not going to talk about all of them, but in particular, we're going to talk about the Houston Rockets because they traded Clint Capella to the Atlanta Hawks for essentially Robert Covington. And this one definitely leaves me scratching my head because Clint Capella is one of the better young centers in the NBA. A lot of people don't know this about Clint Capella, and I think some of it has to do with the fact that he literally seems like he's played in the NBA for so long, but he's only 25 years old, and at 25 years old, to trade him and have him be the primary post defender and help defender, to me is incredible. I don't quite understand the logic here. And I think the Houston Rockets, they literally are going to go down with the ship. They have come to the conclusion that this is it. Anything else we do at this point doesn't matter. It's championship or bust. It's metrics or bust. And it's nothing to do with what makes sense. It's everything to do with the numbers. They've invested everything. They're all in. There's going to be no way possible they are going to make any changes here. This is what they're going to do. And to me, it's incredible that they are this committed. And personally, I don't know if they're fully I know management is committed, but I don't know about ownership. I mean, to me, this kind of smells like, look, if we don't get it done this year, we're not getting it done ever. And to me, it seems like they're done. After this year, if things don't happen for them, I have no doubt that you're going to see pieces go. You're going to see coaches being fired. Mike D'Antonio, I think this is his last year. I really do. The concept of Mike D'Antoni, I know I'm one of the minor people out here. There's a lot of people that love Michael D'Antonio. I'm not one. I despise his system. He seems like he doesn't care about the defensive side of the game at all. And it's 3-point shot or nothing. And in today's NBA, I just don't know how feasible of a championship formula that is. I don't ever think it is. I don't ever think it was. Essentially, the thing that, and this goes on in real life, there's always somebody who sees the winning formula, and they always go out and they say, you know what, we got the winning formula. We can make this thing better. It's never as good as the original. And you see this you see this with burger chains, you see this with fast foods, you see this in all phases of consumerism, where one person has the magic and the next person comes behind, and very rarely, if ever, do they do it as good or as better as the original. And the Houston Rockets, when they named Daryl Morey the general manager years and years ago, we were told that this was a move about metrics. We were told that this guy, the MIT grad, he's going to make the metrics sing. Championship titles are coming. Hold your hats. Here we go. And instead, what has happened is the Golden State Warriors happened. And the Houston Rockets, they saw what was happening. They said, oh, these guys are shooting threes at a high rate. We can do that too. But what the Houston Rockets failed to understand is that although the game of basketball has changed drastically from its inception, it really has. I mean, watching games from the 1980s and watching them now, heck, watching games from the 1990s and watching them now, doesn't even look like it's the same game. But the one thing that has stayed constant throughout basketball is STOPS, stops. How many times can you prevent the other team from scoring? Defense still has a huge part to play in championships. And unfortunately, the Houston Rockets did not get that notice. They let Trevor Ariza go. They've now got, Clint Capella, who they've let go. It's obvious to me they have no desire to worry about defense. They have decided they're going to try to outshoot everybody. And what they seem to forget is the Golden State Warriors, on top of having two of the greatest shooters of all time, and Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, they failed to see that the rest of their team were exceptionally good from the defensive side of the ball. They were creating stops all the time. They have great perimeter defense. It's like no way that I don't know if either Daryl Morey or Mike D'Antonio, if for whatever reason they didn't see that part of the equation, but that's the one part that they just cannot seem to replicate. And it seems to me that they're like, look, we're going to go metrics or bust. Now, look, I don't want to sound like I'm this old school guy who doesn't believe in metrics. Hey, Matt, metrics, come on, man. It's the wave of the future. You got to get on it or get off of it. Get off of the basketball if you're not going to talk about metrics. Listen, I love metrics. I think metrics has a huge part to play in basketball. I think it's one of those things that can really assist teams with identifying talents. And more importantly than all that, I think it's one of those things that can assist in making the right pick and making the right free agent pick for your franchise. Truly do. As an old coach told me, metrics are vitally important. They confirm what the eyes can see. So, I don't disclaim metrics. The problem with metrics to me is the one folly, and like I saw Mark Cuban go on TV a while back, and he said that, basically that the big man in basketball has changed because of the game, but it was a forced change. There were rule changes that were put into play. So he didn't tell the complete truth about that. I mean, he definitely told a good portion of it, but the complete truth of it is zone defenses greatly crippled big men. And more important than that, the skill sets that we wanted as basketball players crippled big men. If NBA teams want post players, then draft post players, and I guarantee you'll see in the next few years post players. But that's not what the NBA teams want. And the problem with metrics has always been not that they exist, but that they exist to favor one prototype. They do not take into the equation the wonderful world that we live in of diversity. They do not take into the occasion of that. They just don't. They look for a player who can stretch defenses. They look for a player who can make 3-point shots. That's what they want. They do not want a guy with a versatile skill set. They want a guy that has a certain skill set. Now, I know the metric people will come out and they'll attack me and they'll say, yeah, that's not true. We totally put into, but they don't. They really don't. They want those players to be uniformed in skill set. They want the big men to be 3-point shooters. They want the power forwards to be 3-point shooters. This is what they want in today's NBA. Anybody who tries to tell me something different, they haven't seen the NBA game recently. And now with the Houston Rockets having nobody bigger than 6'6" that's going to be starting for them, don't tell me that there's not a plot or a ploy or a favoritism towards smaller players. There absolutely is. And that's what you're seeing right now with the Houston Rockets. They said, we're going to go full metrics mode on this thing. And look, if we're going to go down the Titanic, we're going to go down as captains of our boat. So that's essentially what you're seeing with the Houston Rockets. Now, the question is, does it work? Is it something that they can do that's going to have success? I don't think so. But you know what? If they win, and I think it's a huge if, but if they win, certainly this is something you'll see teams do. You just will. Teams are copycatters, just like the Houston Rockets copycatted, and there's not going to be any different here. Now, the other trade that has definitely left the NBA community just aghast is Andrew Wiggins to the Warriors. So, in case you've been living under a rock, D'Angelo Russell, Jacob Evans, and Amari Spellman went to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Andrew Wiggins. And Andrew Wiggins is an interesting player. He really is, because he has given us the illusion, or should I say, he's given NBA people the illusion for years, since we first saw him as a 13-year-old kid playing basketball in Canada. We all said, this guy is going to be the next phenom. And we've been pushing this ever since he went to Kansas. We've been pushing it since his rookie year. We've been pushing it since he dropped 20 points a game. We've been waiting for Andrew Wiggins to be this player. And it's never happened. The one thing we know about Andrew Wiggins is he takes really bad shots. We know that he is not the most fundamentally sound player. And we know that there has always been a question of lack of heart. Does this guy really just want to play basketball, or does he want to play basketball for a check? And a lot of times Andrew Wiggins comes across the latter. It's not that I think that Andrew Wiggins is a bad person. I just don't know if Andrew Wiggins has that dog in him to want to go out and want to be the best. I don't know. And to me, the Golden State Warriors, this is what's funny with me, right? So I got numerous groups that I'm on Facebook, and numerous groups will go out there and they'll say, hey, this might work. This might work. You know, they know what they're doing there. They know what they're doing there. This might work. This could possibly work. And then here's the funny thing. So he's going to fit right in with our group, is what Steve Kerr said about D'Angelo Russell, because there were same questions about D'Angelo Russell, although there was less of a concern about talent and there was less of a concern about fit with D'Angelo Russell. But there still was the occasional, can he fit what they need him to be? Then, after everything happens, Steve Kerr says, to be blunt, the fit was questionable when we signed him. Okay, so let me get this straight. You said he's going to be a great fit. Then you turned around and said, well, yeah, it was a questionable fit. And explain to me how Andrew Wiggins isn't a questionable fit. Andrew Wiggins is a grossly crazy fit for the Golden State Warriors. From a cap spot, from the cap, his contract is ugly. From the optics of the kind of player that Andrew Wiggins is, he does not look like he can fit in with the Golden State Warriors. He just doesn't look like he can fit in. I don't see what the Golden State Warriors apparently see. They got a bad contract. You got a guy who you're asking to take a role that he does not want to take. Andrew Wiggins is not going to Golden State thinking, hey, maybe I can fit Harrison Barnes' role. Maybe I can become a defender. Maybe I can do this. No, Andrew Wiggins is going to Golden State Warriors right now, literally saying to himself, I bet I can be Kevin Durant for this group. I think I can be Kevin Durant. Literally, that's what's being said. I know that's what he's thinking. Because Andrew Wiggins has all of the great intention of millennials, which I want to go out, I want to be the best. And here's the thing. This isn't even a generational argument. This is what Andrew Wiggins has put out in the NBA for quite some time. It's why Jimmy Butler hasn't liked him. It's why Stephen Jackson has said things about him. It is why people have gone around the NBA and constantly taken shots at Andrew Wiggins, because he has never shown the humility or the maturity to be the player that he possibly could be. And from that standpoint, that is incredible to me. And then I'd also like to say, a lot of people are overlooking Amari Spellman here. Amari Spellman was a great situation for the Golden State Warriors. I love the kid. I think the kid really has some great skills. He's still learning the game himself. And don't be surprised if Amari Spellman ends up becoming a decent player down the road, because he's still growing into his skills. A lot of people don't know this, but he basically left as a freshman after redshirting his first year at Villanova. He's still learning the game. He's still very raw, but I can tell you what, skill-wise, he's got a lot of great skills you look for in, current big men of the NBA. I think, down the road we might say, hey, Minnesota got a great situation with Spellman. Now, next trade that, again, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. The LA Lakers lost the bidding war to acquire Marcus Morris. He ends up going to the Clippers in a three-way trade with the Wizards and the Knicks. And Marcus Morris is essentially going to really help the Clippers. He is going to go to the Clippers. He's going to give them depth. He's going to go give them range. And he's going to give them defensive versatility. Marcus Morris is going to be a problem for the Los Angeles Lakers down the road. As if LeBron James does not have enough issues going on and Anthony Davis does not have enough issues going on, now you put another log on the fire with Marcus Morris. And according to sources, again, not my sources, but just things that are out there on the internet that we all can read, LeBron James is not happy about this. He really wanted Marcus Morris, and it now does not look like he's going to get him, and it now does not look like Marcus Morris is a good fit. No, sorry, not a good fit, but he's a great fit for the Clippers, and he would have been a great fit for the LA Lakers. Definitely gives them, again, more depth, more defense, more versatility. Great, huge pickup for the Clippers. And I think the Clippers already have shown that they're not afraid of LA, and this just further cements it. I really think in the conference, the Clippers have shown themselves to now pull away from the Lakers long term. Okay. There's also, let's talk about Philadelphia real quick. As many of you may or may not know, I am a Delaware native. And being a Delaware native has you intertwined with the Philadelphia 76ers. There are a lot of things that are going on with the Philadelphia 76ers. Some have said they think Embiid should be traded. Some have said Ben Simmons should be traded. Some have said that they just don't look like they really get playing together, that there's always an issue. And me, I'm kind of torn personally on what the Sixers should do. But I do like the pickup of Alec Burks. I do like the pickup of Glenn Robinson III. I think Burks gives the Philadelphia 76ers more offense, definitely can shoot the ball, and Glenn Robinson gives them another layer of athleticism on the wing. So, look, those are great pickups. Those are all things I think Philadelphia was lacking that they now have in spades. So, look, that's a great, great pickup. No one can say anything bad about that. I think it makes a lot of sense for Philadelphia. I think the long-term question with Philadelphia is going to be, are we going to get to a situation in which Ben Simmons is in or Ben Simmons is out? And I think that's what Philly's going to have to come down to, because no matter how you slice it, Ben Simmons is a very difficult player to build a team around. And I think even more difficult, I think Joel Embiid is. And they are both exceptionally talented. No doubt about it, but definitely very hard. Now, don't get me wrong. Ben Simmons definitely is more. It's easier to build a team around a great passer than it is to build a team around a center that starts his game out on the perimeter. I think that is going to be an issue for Philadelphia. Ben, don't forget, Embiid is a little bit injury prone. So look, they've got to make some choices there. If I was running the Sixers, I would probably look to get a nice haul for Joel Embiid. And I know, it seems crazy, but I really think that Ben Simmons is the best fit for a team game, and I think Joel Embiid is the best fit for a team that needs a scorer. I don't know how much he does for Philly in that perspective, especially with the fact that Philly, the offense does not seem to go as well when him and Ben Simmons are on the floor at the same time. Again, maybe it's people reading too much into things. Could definitely be, but I wouldn't be shocked if later on down the road, Embiid or Simmons is viewed as maybe we should go. And don't forget, there's also, maybe the coach goes. Maybe Brett Brown gets fired. We don't know. I definitely think he's on the hot seat. If he doesn't make the conference finals, I think he's in deep trouble if he doesn't meet that. I really do. Because look, they've waited for this. At this point, if nothing occurs, there are definitely going to be some things said, and I definitely think he's going to be on the hot seat, and I think that will be it for him. Now, on the college news, we have Kahlil Whitney from Kentucky, who is transferring out. He has not picked a school yet to transfer. However, there is much speculation that he will declare himself for the NBA draft. And I cannot stress to you more how disappointed I am in that. Not from the standpoint that I think he's a bad player, not from the standpoint that I think he's not a good player, but from the standpoint that what do you do with him? Like, seriously, what do you do with Kahlil Whitney right now? He goes to Kentucky. He clearly had struggled to fit in with the offense. He's now leaning towards, I'm guessing, a team closer to home. And if he doesn't go there, the theory is he'll declare for the draft and he'll work out and wait for his opportunity. And what scares me about that isn't that he will. Look, I get about getting information for the NBA draft. I get that. The thing I worry about with kids like him is I wonder if they get into that process and they start that process, do they know when to say, you know what? I know people who I played with in the McDonald's All-American and people that I know were in my class that were blue chips. It's their time to go for the draft. I'm okay with that. Some guys aren't. Some guys feel, look, I was better than that guy in high school. I should, no, I'm going to stay in the draft. I'm a blue chip recruit. And sometimes it happens. I hope he gets information that he needs if he does declare for the draft and finds what he needs to work on, and then goes and transfers to a school and gets those skill sets so that maybe he can entertain going into the draft after his sophomore year. The biggest problem I've had with the NBA draft has been the reward for marginal blue chip ability in college. And what I mean by that is guys who are blue chips, who go to schools, have pretty average or pedestrian freshman years. They don't stay. They go into the draft, and they get rewarded with a first-round draft pick. You saw this with Skal Labissiere. You saw this with Harry Giles. You've seen this with Daniel Orton. It happens more and more. And I think it sets a bad precedent because the next player that's out there that's averaging 3 points a game that was a blue chip recruit says, look, those guys got drafted. I can stay in the draft, and I'll get drafted. And at a certain point, I get it. You want to go out there. You want to provide for your family. You have the ability to do that. You want to cash in. And maybe some of these guys just want to become professional ball players. I get that too. I just think it's dangerous when you play that game because if it doesn't work out for you and you are left standing without a chair to sit in, you're in trouble, career-wise. And sometimes it works out well, but sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, there's a lot of guys we've seen that have been blue chip recruits that, that just didn't do a whole lot in the NBA. It happens all the time. It's nothing to to be upset about. It's part of this game, man. This game it separates talent. And sometimes these guys who had all this ability, who had all this acclaim in high school, they go into the NBA, and the next thing you know, they're not doing what they used to do. So, look, I hope he gets the information he needs, but I really, really, really hope he goes back to school, because to me, that is what he needs to do long term. And again, I know I'm switching gears quite a bit, but my, Giannis is putting up a year for the ages. He really is. He right now is leading the entire NBA and NBA history with a PER of 32.6. Now, before you ask me what a PER is, let me tell you, it's a player efficiency rating. It's one of the most valued metrics in all of basketball. It really helps identify talents and really can, as good as it can, quantify the value of that player. Now, the league average is 15. So if you're an average NBA ball player, you're a 15, right? So Giannis is 32.6. I mean, he is having a year that's incredible. Now, the record is held by Wilt Chamberlain, 31.8, and Wilt, 31.7, 63 and 62 seasons. Now, here's what's incredible about Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain could honestly have even a higher PER if we could somehow have full stats on steals and blocks per game. That's without those other stats being put into the equation for him to have these numbers. That's how incredibly significant Wilt Chamberlain's 63 and 62 basketball seasons are. Now, not to be outdone, Michael Jordan comes in 1988 with a PER of 31.7, and LeBron James in 2009 has a PER of 31.7 as well. So, if Giannis continues to average this player efficiency rating of 32.6, he will have arguably one of the greatest efficient basketball seasons in NBA history. And, it's crazy when you think of Giannis, because he's essentially taken if you remember back, this guy was a D2 Greek, like he was in the Greek league in a D2 team. And when you saw him, you saw the raw potential. And everybody knows I have multiple quotes during this time. I really liked what I saw in him. But again, I didn't know if this was a guy that, if I could tell you he was going to turn into a league MVP, look, I'd have $1 million. I didn't expect any of that. I thought that this guy could, possibly become an 18, 20-point scorer down the road, get a couple, all-star games, but a league MVP? No way. Didn't think that at all. It's incredible to see. And yet again, it shows, like, when people sat around and they talked about Luka Doncic, I laughed, because it's like I was hearing this narrative that Luka Doncic, he's the promise of the European basketball system. He's going to put to bed all of the international basketball stereotypes. And I'm thinking and sitting there saying to myself, I don't understand. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about that because Luka Doncic is coming on the scene, that now people respect international basketball? I don't understand that. We've been respecting international basketball. It's a joke, really, how much we respect international basketball. We respect international basketball so much, we have made our players play a European style of basketball in the NBA. Something we wouldn't even have done in 2005, 2004. No, these guys play like Europeans for the most part. They really do. So when people sit there and they say to me, oh, no, what are you talking about? Why is Luka Doncic the guy that's going to show the European system works? Why is he that guy? Why isn't Giannis that guy? I mean, Giannis played in a D2 Greek system. He wasn't like Luka Doncic. Luka was already playing at an elite level of basketball, arguably right after he turned 15, 16 years old. He was a professional. Giannis was not, he made himself. And I'm guessing maybe the difference is, and look, if I'm talking out of turn here, please let me know. But the only thing I can think of is because Giannis didn't play Division I Greek basketball, I'm guessing the perception is that only the Greeks, sorry, not the Greeks, only the international community molded and shaped Luka Doncic into what he is today. Okay, so we're saying that basically the European system kind of helped Giannis, and then the North American basketball infrastructure did the rest. I mean, it's really weird when I hear that. And listen, I know I'm gonna take some flack for saying this. I almost wonder if the Luka Doncic narrative is spun because Luka Doncic is white and Giannis is black. It's weird to me. I know maybe I'm looking into it too far, but I can't help but understand, like, why is Giannis not viewed as the promise of the international basketball? Why is Luka viewed that way? It's just weird to me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And look, it could be everything I just said. Maybe it's because Luka came in with a huge resume and backed it up and then some. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know. I can tell you this. If everybody's ready to take victory laps, okay, let's take that victory lap, sure, because the guy deserves the kudos. Luka's killing it, for sure. But if we're going to take the victory lap on European basketball, okay, can some of these teams get their picks back? Because I can tell you this right now, we have, in the basketball for the last 20 years of the NBA draft, some of the worst picks have been international basketball players. Some of the worst. And people that want to argue that, or argue that that's not true, you haven't been paying attention. I have. Some of the worst picks in the NBA draft of the last 20 years are from the international basketball market. Don't get me wrong, North America puts up duds left and right, but don't sit here and try to tell me that there's nothing but home runs that get swung by international basketball. And here's what's even funnier. And I've had this debate with scouts before. But I had a guy tell me, well, no, the international basketball, they really commit. They really do what they do. They're so great. You know, they really make an impact. So basically, this is how the bar is measured for the international basketball community. If they come in and they play off the bench, they've done well. North American basketball player, if he comes in and he's on the bench, well, look at it. He wasted his potential. He should have stayed in college for a couple more years. Like, that's what gets said. That's what gets said. They're not, if you're from North America and you left and you become a solid 8, 9, 10 guy on the bench, no one cares. They look at you like, oh, he's a scrub. It's trash. But let you be a European player and you on the bench and you get about 15 minutes a game, some of these NBA scouts look at that as a win. They say, oh, yeah, see, that's a perfect match. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. And he got actually traded in the deadline. Bruno Caballo is one of the worst draft picks that the NBA has had over the last 20 years. Now, he's staying in the league because people don't want to admit that this might not be the best player for the NBA. Now, people can argue. They can say, oh, no, that's not true. That's not true. It is true. This guy has been a poster child for the patience that's used with international basketball players. They don't have this patience with North American basketball players. I'm going to tell you that right now. If a North American basketball player was a freshman and declared for the NBA draft and did what Bruno Caballo did the last 4 years, I'm going to tell you this right now, he wouldn't be in the league. He wouldn't. He wouldn't be in the league. He wouldn't still have a place in the league. But Bruno does. This guy's still earning NBA checks. Why? Because they're patient. We're not patient with North American players. If you're not popping off, if you're not one of the best players, well, you know what? Bye. Because you know the well it has a lot of water in it. So you're okay. Oh, we throw a little bit of water out? Okay, that's fine. We can go back in the well. We can pull somebody else up. In the international basketball community, which they don't want to be honest about, the well is a little bit more shallow. It's a little bit more shallow. So, we got to keep this thing going here. You know, we got to keep it going. And I'm going to tell you this right now. There are players that have been drafted over the last 20 years from international basketball communities that if you had the NBA draft in 1987 with like 7 rounds, that shouldn't have been drafted if you had a 7th round draft. That's what's crazy. Yeah. And it sounds like I'm speaking with hyperbole and I'm not being honest. I'm being completely honest. Don't let these people lie to you. There have been some horrible international draft picks that we've selected. That we've said, oh, great value. We'll park him overseas and he'll develop. And they never do. They never do. Now, the international basketball market, when you get the right guy, sure, great place. Great place. But we're going to talk about Drazen Bender? He was a guy. What we doing? What we going to talk about? You going to tell me he was a great pick at the 3rd pick? And I was highly skeptical of that pick too. I can show my notes. I didn't have him as a top 5 guy. Everybody else did. 7 foot, can shoot from the outside. Oh, sign us up. Yeah. Happens all the time. And that is why metrics trouble me. Back to the metrics conversation of this, because they take a look at a guy like that. They say, look, he can shoot from the outside. Let's draft him. Because that's really what the model suggests, because that's all the model looks for. Guys like Draymond Green, there's no model for them. There's no model. There's a model that, hey, he was worthy of a draft pick. Sure. There's no model that this guy should be taken higher than the 35th pick. There's no model for that. But that's what happens when you just base things on just numbers and you don't base things on the optics. You don't go out there and you don't actually go see the player play. You don't really go out there and really interpret, does this skill set match our team? That's trouble. That's trouble. And the Dallas Mavericks are no different. They're out there trying to make their own Houston Rockets team. Well, they got guys out there, oh, we're just going to shoot from the outside all day. Okay, great. But again, we're going to have the same problem. Defense is a must in basketball. So what are you going to do? You going to get one guy that can play D? We'll get this one guy, and then the rest will just play the way we want them to play. Huh? How you going to do that? And people hate when I talk like this because they think I'm being anti-metric. No. I'm being anti-stupidity. I'm all for common sense. If you're just going to go into a situation and you're going to say, you know what? We're drafting this type. And that's all. We're just going to draft this type. And that's all you got? And you're shocked that maybe it's not working out too well? I don't know why you're shocked. Why would it work out? Why would it work out? You've been putting yourself in a serious situation here. Because now the threes have to hit at a high rate because you can't stop anybody when they come down. And that, my friends, is the problem with some of these teams. There's too much monkey see, there's too much monkey do, and that's the problem we have in today's NBA. Everybody wants to copy everybody. No one wants to try to break the molds. No one wants to try to think outside the box. Everybody wants to do what everybody else is doing. And yet, it's never better than the original. So one last thing I wanted to talk about. Got a little bit of time left, but one last thing I wanted to talk about was Bobby Knight. And Bobby Knight has a place within basketball as a guy who people love and a guy people hate. And I mean hate with a capital H. And I mean love with a capital L. It is very, very, very contentious about his legacy. He's almost the Donald Trump of college basketball. It really is split. You either hate him or you like him. There really is no, well, I'm indifferent. There's none of that. You either hate him or you love him. And the problem with Bobby Knight is, though, even though we sit here and we can point to all his antics and we can say all these things, we can call him a bully, but the guy won 900 games. He has a winning percentage of like 75%. His former players worship him. They love him. He is a very complex man. I don't know if we can fully encapsulate his legacy by saying he was a bully. I think Bobby Knight is one of the most complex people I've ever known, that I've ever watched, because you hear of things, you see how other players talk about him, and you say, man, these people really love this guy. It's not a game. They love him. And yet, so many outside the program despise him. It's a very difficult legacy to encapsulate. I mean, you saw in that video when he returned home. Returned to Indiana. So after a 20-year absence, there were people that were getting emotional in the stands. I mean, he's revered. I mean, say what you want to say. I've heard people call him a racist. I've heard people call him a bigot. I've heard people say that, he was a trash human being. I've heard all sorts of negative labels to put on Bobby Knight. And I've heard other things like he cares. He loves his guys. He's a leader. You could always go to him when you needed something. I've heard all these things from black, white players. They love the guy. They always talk, a lot of these guys talk about how they became a man under Bobby Knight. So that's why I say he's complex. I can't really say with any level of certainty what Bobby Knight really is, but complex. We hate him. We love him. And to top it all off, if you say you hate him and another person says they love him, the crazy thing about legacies like Bobby Knight is that you both are right. You both are right to feel the way you feel. Because to some people, Bobby Knight will be untouchable. And to others, he'll be untouchable. They don't want to touch him. They don't want to shake his hand. They don't even want to look at him. So I thought it was pretty special to see, because you can see the emotions that were there with Bobby, something that he rarely showed in terms of, he teared up. You saw the emotions of the former players. You saw the emotions of the people in the stands. So, yeah, it's a complex deal. And I don't know if we know many people like that. I don't know if we know many people in sports or in American history that people can have the same feeling of negativity and positivity and both be right. That's what makes Bobby Knight incredible. And to me, at the end of the day, his legacy is that he was the best of us. He was the worst of us. And at the end of the day, he won a lot of games with less players than many guys that share his numbers. Let's just be honest. You look at Coach K's numbers, pull out those McDonald's All-American and those blue chips. Bobby Knight don't come close. Kentucky, whoever you want to put in that category that has 900 plus wins, Bobby Knight doesn't have their clientele or their roster of alumni. He doesn't have these blue chippers coming out the woodwork. He doesn't have this laundry list of like all-star NBA talents. Sure, there's some, but the most of them were just really great role players in the NBA. Most of the players out of Indiana were not superstars. Really, the biggest talent he ever had was Isaiah Thomas. That's it. And that says something right there. Whether you like him or not, that says a lot about the guy and his coaching ability. Appreciate you guys taking time to listen to me today. I've been talking your ear off. Again, we do live here, and I just want to tell you guys, look, we're not done. This is going to be a weekly deal. Please join me, follow, subscribe, and more important than that, share the Maurer Power Podcast. It's Matt Maurer. I'm signing off. I'll talk to you guys soon.